Hey everyone, how's everyone doing today? Today we're doing an early morning behind the scenes. Hopefully you guys can hear me, and just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. And so what is behind the scenes? Behind the scenes is where our guest speaker will talk about a project that they've done, and they'll run us through their numbers, they'll run us through the project, like what they've done with the project, what was the purpose, why they bought it. And then they'll also run us through the problems they encountered, how they solved them, and if it was something new, then they would also tell us, what they learned from that experience. So our guest speaker is Kasey Wong. Let me just, yeah, I can see the request. Let me just add him in. One second.
Oh, my head's cut off. Hey, Kasey, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Diana?
Good, good. Excited to have you on and to hear about your story. So thank you for coming on. And
No
let's
problem.
just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself first. Just give them a little bit of what you do, what kind of entrepreneur in real estate you are, whatever
Sure.
you'd like to share.
Um, yeah, let's go way back. Chinese Canadian. Grew up in the Malvern area, so Shepherd and Nelson. Very Canadian. In that area, most of my friends were Indian background. So it wasn't the John Smith or the Michael there. It was more like the Hanif, Nazir, Nadeem. Those are the people that I grew up with. Um, then moved over to another part of Scarborough, the poshier Scarborough, which is Huntingwood and Kennedy area. And then yeah, just went to school, U of T Scarborough campus, did a business background. First went to science, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then looking at my first year marks, I was like, no, I'm not going to be a doctor. So quickly got into business, worked at a couple banks, so CIBC Asset Management, TD Asset Management, went into pension, a little bit of pension consulting, which is Towers Perrin, and then that's probably a little more of like a Mercer type of um, company, Mercer, Watson Wyatt. I'm not sure if they're still around. Um, so doing some pension analysis there. Then we were actually just buying properties. Read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm actually not a go-getter. I'm not the one that start. My wife is the one that said, okay, let's take a look at it. So she's the initiator, but I'm the one that will take a look at the properties because that's what I like to do. And then it took about a year, bought our first property, Dundas in Broadview, so old Chinatown, East Chinatown, bought a triplex there, 197,500 in 2003. So we basically started in 2002. It took about a year to analyze, to make sure we're comfortable, and then it's kind of snowballed from there. Bought a few more like single detached houses, four in Barrie, a couple in London. Hit a 10plex in Kitchener. So I'm going to go this pretty quickly, and then hit Hamilton. Lost money in Hamilton on Main and Gage Street. So these are like two eightplexes and a 12plex on Main and Gage. Lost money, pay back my investors in a way that I pulled out money from my pocket, paid them back. It's like, you know what? It seems like I'm making money in my properties, and the at that time we did a JV, and that it didn't do well there. So there's no point in burning any bridges, making friends angry and things like that, because it is their money. They understand the rule, like we said it basically. We set the guidelines out and said that, you know what, you could lose the money and so on and so forth, but I'd rather not lose a friendship over money. So got out of Hamilton, cut my losses there about uh, over 400K, so like say half a mil. And then I went into property management at the time as well. So I started working for some prominent companies like your Brookfields, your Cap Rates, and then some smaller boutique condo management companies, and also some commercial um, management companies as well. So and then I actually sort of steered my ship, my career path into property management, not really finance or investments or banking or anything like that. Went into property management, wanted to know what they were doing, specifically like the bigger players like your cap rates. I want to know what details they were doing. They don't really kind of divulge it, especially to a young young director. I was just an operations director there. So managing about 1,250 units, which is considerably small. Usually the seasoned directors will be about 2,000, 2,500 units. So I was half the size, just wanted to learn. And then we continue to buy. So on the side, it took us probably about 2007 was when we got out of Hamilton. And then we started investing again in 2013. So about 6 years for us to sort of recoup what we had lost in Hamilton. And it took that much time. And then I sold my triplex to get my student housing in Waterloo. There's some videos on YouTube and stuff, but in Waterloo I got student housing, and it was. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Okay. And then student housing was my next sort of major purchase in terms of buildings. But yeah, overall, we just started buying more properties. Recently, so in our portfolio, we have a 32 unit, 33 unit, 36 unit, a 40 unit, units in Kitchener. I'm just kind of rambling right now with some land development stuff. And then we just recently purchased a building in Kitchener. It's a 29 unit building. So, and this is recent because people want to know what have we done recently, especially during COVID, especially during rising inflation.
So is there one specific one that you want to talk to us about is there one specific one that you're interested in talking to us about?
Yeah, of course. So if you ask me if I have anything to talk about, I always have something to talk about. For the 29 unit building, we just purchased that literally, September, October-ish of just last year. So we're not, let's say that's 6 months in. We bought it. It's expensive. Like the market has really changed in a way that prices has escalated. This is just the purchase price has escalated, and usually rents will do a lag because people essentially will stay there. Your rents are fairly low relative to your purchase price, so your cap rates are really compressed now. The details of this is that this is 29 units. We bought it for just over 9 million, so it's about 320,000 per unit. So what does this tell about overall landscape of this real estate area is that, yeah, prices are going up in certain, in almost all areas within the GTA area. Your cash flow will be tight. Your obviously your cap rates are tight, so it's probably going to be probably a zero cash flow at the end of the month. And now that may sort of jog, like, you run your numbers and say, why would you do something like that, right? Well, there's always an opportunity if you're looking for something to this area, is that what can I do to exit, right? Am I going to be selling it to another investor at 29 units townhouse? No, what I'm going to probably do is that I'm going to condominiumize this and then sell this out. I'm going to get that specific title and sell it individually. And usually the townhouse right now, the bottom price is probably about right now 450 to, I say 450 to 480-ish, right, on the low side. So we're buying at low threes. We have to put some money in to condominiumize it. So there's a capital outlay there. And then current market, we're looking at, let's say 450 to 480. In 3 years, 5 years, right? There's probably another bump. So actually our real estate agent says that, no, it's probably not in the 500s, it's probably in the 600s, even currently, right? Because it's so hard to find. So nice little price floor that it's not going to drop any like lower, right? So if we condominiumize, individual buyers will buy something like this and use it, as a homeowner and end user. So what does this mean?
That's very interesting because so your strategy is that fine, you're not cash flowing, but the way you get around it is that your future plan is that you're going to, like you said, condominiumize it. So that's a very interesting. But when you say you're not cash flowing, is that with a 20% down? Oh, I don't know if you heard me because it looked like it kind of cut out. Did you get to hear my full question? Oh,
Your
I
full
don't know if
question
you
was
guys is
with the 20%.
yeah, sorry. So I was saying that because you were saying that right now you're not cash flowing. So is that not cash flowing with a 20% down, or is not cash flowing with a what?
We actually have put down, I think it was 35% down or 40%. Um,
Hmm.
I think it was 35. My wife does the numbers, so I don't know the specifics to that.
Hmm.
I just don't want to know. But
You
we just,
sound like my husband.
I just don't want to know. So we put, I think it was on 35% down. Um, but yes, the cash flow is very tight. Usually at the very beginning, what the benefit to this townhouse complex is that the utilities are all paid by the tenants. So that's something that's very hard to find. So when you find usually a building, um, let's say a multifamily 32 unit building, standalone, one roof, one heating system, one hot water tank, so on and so forth. Usually the operating costs will be about 40%, running efficiently, um, not including debt service. So when you have a townhouse complex, it drops significantly. It drops way down to probably in the teens. It's just because of the heating and the hot water that you're paying for, and all the just all the utility costs. So definitely that's something to look for. But your price to purchase is definitely going to be higher. Okay, so does it make sense? It does, in a way that your your exit strategy has to be. We're always going to be exiting. It depends on how long
Hmm.
you want to hold it for. The,
Hmm.
if you hold it for the long term, you want to offload those utilities, either by submetering. So we use a company called Wise that would submeter, um, that basically does usually the hydro. Okay, you can do water as well. Water, Wise does water as well. And then if you have a central heating system, it's a little bit, it's almost impossible to do that if you have a large building. So those are the two, well, just the hydro in itself, you want to offload that. But usually in a large building, it's water and heat that you're going to be paying for. So
Hmm. That's interesting. So I'm curious actually then to know, so is this the first time you guys are coming like separating all the units to sell them out?
no, we
Or
actually
have
did.
you done it before?
Yeah, we've done it before for another London project. So this is over on Rideout Street. We actually we only have one unit left. It was a 36 unit building. Um, but yeah, we purchased the entire building. Um, Difficult in a way that finding the cash, and I actually had to find about $8 million in a day and find my investor. And that was difficult. Overall, the return wasn't that good for us, for my wife and I, but it was better for the investor. So, hindsight, would I do it again? For the amount of risk, probably not for me. But my investors are very happy. Like their return was quite. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, we've done it before. We're comfortable with it, condominiumizing it. We have the planners involved, and the consultant that can do the reserve fund study, the engineers that can do it. So that definitely helps.
That's awesome. So so I'm just curious, what are the steps involved to doing that? Like, or your steps, I would say, because obviously there's so many different levels. Like, will you go to also renovating it? Like, are you going to go to the city and get those changes made, plus you're going to renovate it, or what steps are you going to take before you decide what your exit plan is?
Yeah, so definitely to sell it to the end user, yes, you have to renovate it to that standard. So we already have the capital in place where we're going to renovate it. So usually in a condo townhouse, the corporation will be responsible for the exterior windows and doors, landscaping, garbage, um, and landscaping, which is like snow removal and grass cutting, things like that. So that all has to be in place, and money has to be in place where if we're going to renovate it and sell it, how much is it going to be for the exterior, like your windows and doors, as I mentioned, maybe the roof, um, and just the overall operations of it on an annual basis. So yes, we do have to have that in place, and we have to renovate it properly. So it's a completely different ballgame in a way that, are you renovating it for the tenant or a homeowner? So that difference is going to be a little bit more. So we gauge that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, about $10,000 to $15,000 more. And usually it's going to be put in, like the money that's going to be put in is usually the kitchens, the bathrooms, windows and doors, flooring, and that's about it. Painting is usually pretty nominal, cleaning, and that's about it. But that's the money that we're spending, and we budgeted about $35,000 for it per unit. And usually, if you just break it down, for example, $10,000 for windows and doors. It's not that many windows, and a couple doors, front and back, and then about 6 windows. So it's not overly expensive. Kitchens, we actually have good kitchen suppliers. To be honest with you, it's actually in Scarborough, and they're willing to just drive out and deliver one day and install in one day. So that's how quick some of these contractors are. So you as an operator, you have to source out good, reliable contractors, because that's our investors are asking us about that, especially during COVID, during the supply chain sort of crunch. What are we doing to alleviate that, right? Because if we stall or delay, it's gonna, your return substantially drops, right? Because instead of a 3-year project, it becomes a 5-year project, and if your prices are stagnant, it just means that your rate of return goes down. So in essence, that what we do operationally affects us on the returns, which the investors will not be happy with. So it's everything is sort of integrated in a way that when we delay, supplies change, it affects our return to our investors, right? And we want to, you have to be cognizant of what you're doing in time frame and supplies. So yeah, it's a whole, it's basically within this
It's a big
machine.
juggling act.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of.
Oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Oh, sorry. I think for some reason it cut out your voice. I didn't hear the last part.
No, they were just calling me on my phone. I'm actually.
Oh, okay. That's why, because I couldn't hear you speaking.
Yeah, my phone was ringing. I still work. Like that's what we do. I'm not retired or any way, and I don't think I'd ever want to retire. I like what we do, and
Yeah.
I'm decent at what I'm doing. So
Yeah, and I think like that. I think it's just more, I think the word retirement is changing, right? It's more that we're kind of in control of our decisions of what we want to make, how we want to work, and how long we want to work, and doing what we love.
yeah,
Right. So I think like retirement's more like now it's kind of, I think, more we've retired from our 9 to 5 jobs working for someone else and working for ourselves. Because like you said, I feel like if you retire, you will get to a point that, and if you do nothing, you get to a point that you're going to get depressed, because I mean, we're people that need to be doing things. We need to have a purpose.
that's right. That's right. So hopefully this even when we started, when my wife and I started, we literally started from something small, and just grew. So wherever you guys are, like I know, I'm guessing that most of I guess the viewers, we have like 7 viewers here. They're viewing this as they want to start on their own. Either if you're young, definitely do it yourself. If you're a little bit older, let's say you're in my age, where you're in the mid 40s, partnering would probably be better, because you just don't want that risk. In a way that
100%. And you just want that
yeah,
expert there to help you get it done right, right?
yeah,
Especially even if you want to be an active person, like always start with someone that knows more than you and learn from
yep,
them.
that's right. That's right. Look,
Mhm.
that's my suggestion, is that you don't have to have the entire cake and eat it. It's just that you have to prepare for everything. You gotta get the ingredients. You gotta bake it. You gotta make sure that there's no cost overrun and things like that. And at the end of the day, you get to eat your cake, right? Albeit good, bad, over budget, hopefully under budget, but you take upon all that risk, right?
100%. I'm curious. I have another question for you actually for related to the I can't even say the word. Was it oh, I can't say the word. But anyways, yeah. How long do you expect the process just within the city? Like, just the city part to get it changed over. How long does that take normally?
Normally, I'm guessing it would take probably about a year and a half. But the previous owner started on that. So a lot of the paperwork went to the city, and they essentially passed along quite a bit of the milestone. But we're probably looking at about 6 months now. But we're probably going to continue for that 3 years. We're not going to fast track it in any way. We want to see where this market is going. We do think that the lower end of the market, which this is, in a way that end users want to get into the housing market, there's no real drop. So there's probably going to be a drop in the more expensive high-end locations, probably like my house and things like that. Those are going to be susceptible to a downside risk. So your townhomes, those complex, your semi-detached house, row houses, things like that, those are your starter homes, and those will probably be, can weather the risk of a correction, a little bit of a downfall, a lot better than the more expensive ones. Mind you, we're in an area where inflation is ramping up, interest rates are going up, but we have to look at, step back, like, where is interest rates, right? It's still the Bank of Canada just raised the prime rates by 50 beeps, so 0.5%. But what we're talking about, we still have fairly low interest rates. So in the long term view of something like this, be in it for the long term. There will be some buying opportunities, but if your numbers are strong, there shouldn't be a reason to sell everything, right? Or if you're if you are selling, there's sometimes people would upgrade. Like, we've sold our houses to upgrade. We've sort of remaneuver our portfolio. So we're always constantly changing to strengthen our overall portfolio. So yes, going back to your question, how long does it take? It does take some time, but that's the overall analysis when you're doing your background, like, homework before you purchase. What's your game plan? So you have your timelines all intact.
And how much would you estimate? I know that again, they started, but you said that you've done this in the past. Like, what do you estimate doing that would cost to just separate all those out so that you can sell them out separately?
How much would it cost per unit?
To the city, I guess. Like, I assume that with the city, you're just paying like a lump sum amount to get it all done for the full complex, right?
Yeah. So I don't know the full details of the cost. I know I'm guessing it's about maybe 200,000 to 400,000. So I'm guessing, like, including consultants' fees, reserve fund, engineering, all of that, maybe from 200,000 to 400,000. But again, that's just on top of my head. I really don't know the complete figures right now.
Yeah, no worries. Just curious. Because I guess, and because I'm guessing it depends obviously on the size of the complex for probably how expensive it also gets to try to separate all those units out.
Yeah.
And so does that mean you'll start doing are you going to start renovating pretty soon, or is renovations going to happen kind of once you know, you've separated all the units out, and then maybe, for example, tenants are leaving, and then you'll renovate it and start selling it? I'm curious on what your plan is in that sense.
Yeah. If there's a turnover, yes, we're going to renovate it. And this actually opens up uh, it opens up to the current tenants as they can be homeowners, right? Most likely it's going to be a little bit more than what they're paying for in rent, but not substantially. It could be anywhere from about, let's say, an extra $500 to $750. So what they're paying right now is about 2,000. The current rent is about $2,150 plus utilities, and then it's going to be a step up to about 500 plus 750. So definitely, you're probably looking at about $3,000 per month for these townhomes. But to answer your question, it's just going to be a turnover. So turnover is the tenants moving out, renovate it, put it on the MLS, quote unquote MLS, or sell it directly to the tenants where you bypass some of the commissions. There could be an exit strategy where you rent to own these, so you can basically.
There's lots of options.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. You can ask for a little bit more because you're going to be doing a rent to own. Help them out with the down payment, things like that. So that's going to be on a second position where you have a mortgage. There's a lot of options for this to sort of get out. And of course, there's always going to be tenants that don't want to move and just want to continue renting, right? But when it comes down to if it's all individually titled or deeded, selling that, and then eventually it's going to be sold to a homeowner, you have that basically the time frame where the tenant moves out and the closing date of renovation. So you have to be cognizant of that time frame where you can renovate and then sell it to the homeowners. So yeah, can we get everybody quote unquote out? I don't want to put it out there and say that that's our strategy, but selling it to homeowners, people still are trying to look for affordable housing, right? And then there will be some tenants that will be staying for the long term. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. And I'm curious actually, because you know, for example, I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen this where there's, you know, people who've bought specifically, I'm going to talk about houses, that they've bought like a couple houses together, right? And then all of a sudden, because of that, it puts the title all, I don't know, yeah, everything gets put into like, you have to sell it all together because it loses its, like, it's not separate anymore. I forget the proper term for it.
Okay.
I'm curious that because you're separating it. I wonder if there's a time frame that you have to like sell it before it gets, you know, let's say stuck together again, like you lose that. They're two separate lands. Do you know anything about that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking when you purchase a house and a side by side, and it's
And you lose, like it's combined into one kind of land or something.
that. This is not going to be the case for the condominium because we're going to have separately titled. Basically, it's going to be separate roll numbers, like with the city. I'm not sure like how we're going to be holding it, but when we hold it, it's going to have all 29 separate entities. So definitely that's going to be different. But the caveat to this is that your property tax is going to drop down. So I haven't done this in a way that, like, I didn't do this in I think it was in the early 2000s where a lot of the homeowners, the landlords were doing this. It's because of the property tax, so they can drop the property tax rate down. And that's why they condominiumize that. So for us to be doing that, yeah, it's all going to be separately titled. And no, it's not going to be, I think it's like a merger of ownership, right? So it's not going to be that where it's all combined again. No, it's all going to be separately titled. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Anything else?
And so, yeah, and just do you have to get going? If you need to get going, no problem. Because usually we do it for around like 40 minutes to an hour. But if you have to get going, then definitely no issues there.
I'm good. I'm good for another 10,
You're
15
good?
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, because I find this a really interesting strategy, and I think like you don't hear a lot about it, so it's just nice to learn as obviously as much as we can from you. So my next question would be, so now that that you're separating them out, and you're talking about, again, this may not be specific to this, but how you're talking about, you may have to separate the water, but like have separate water meters and have separate electrical meters and just separate everything out. I'm curious at how hard that would be, because that would also, you'd have to uh, like break walls and just like that would be a lot of work in itself, wouldn't it, to separate everything out?
No, actually, that's the easy part. So hydro was already separated. Gas and the heat was already separated. The only thing that was combined was water. So WYSE, Wise submetering will put a water meter just I think it's just outside of the house, and they would actually do. I think it's inside the house, and they can actually get the water consumption on the outside. So they have a system where they'll do that. Take a look at the flow rate, and as simple as that, the company Wise, they will actually bill the tenants directly. If they don't pay the water bill, they'll shut it off with, in this case, I think it's City of Kitchener Utilities. So it's just like anybody else owning a house. If you don't pay your water bills or utility bills, they just come and shut it off. So that's the easy part, especially when you're looking for townhouses, and that's like, if that came on the market, that's something that is definitely, go take a look at it, because it's definitely a good opportunity. You're single, basically you're single, let's say you're 30-40 unit buildings as your standalone. Those are your apartment buildings that you can't really condominiumize, or it's gonna be a lot harder. So
Mm-hmm.
your price, even when we're purchasing some of these prices now, your standalone buildings, like a 40 unit building, with one centralized heating and system, you're probably looking at in the mid 200,000. And then for these townhomes, you're looking at, when we bought this, it was like 320. So definitely it's something to look at, but you have to know what your exit strategy is, because you don't want these townhomes, they won't cash flow for 3, 4, 5 years, or until how long you sell it off. And if your strategy is not to condominiumize it, how long do you want to hold it for? Because sometimes some of these tenants will stay there for 10, 20 years, right? And you're only banking on appreciation, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
you want either to exit, get your cash out, or cash flow it, and buy at a lower price and just cash flow it. So it's a strategy where when you do multifamily, you can do a simple value add, cap rate basis, drive up the rent. What else? Like decrease the utility expenses, or the overall expenses, your operating costs. So there's so many things within multifamily where you're the operating partner, that you have to dig it up, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
your experience, that can you find these, and essentially, can you exit, right? I said this to one person, is that for these investors, you have to, once you show them the money, once you give them the money, they don't want the money, right? when
Yeah.
when you don't give them the money, they want their money back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, Diana, like you're an investor, and you gave me $500,000. Here's half a mil, 500,000. And then after 3, 4, 5 years, say, here, Diana, here's your 500, plus here's 600,000. So 1.1 million, we walk away, done. You're going to turn around and say, hey, Kasey, I don't want this 1.1 million, here, take it
Yeah,
again, right? You're going to say,
exactly.
I don't know what to do with this 1.1 million. I'll probably take 100,000 and just kind of splurge a little bit, but here's $1 million, and I'm going to give this to you. Don't run away. But if I said, here, you invested 500,000, and you know what, it's kind of like kind of lost. It's 500,000 that I made a mistake. you're going to tap me on the shoulder and say, no, get back here. I want my $500,000 back. Right. So
100%.
always, this is the learning experience, that if you have investors, show them the money, give them the money back and say, here it is. Thank you very much. This project went very well, and just kind of walk away, right?
Mm-hmm.
They will turn around and say, hey, please, like Diana, Kasey, operating your operating partner, please, like, take this $1 million, right? And redeploy it, invest it again. Mm-hmm. So yes, like, your investors are sort of your, they're your partners. But again, you have to make your project successful. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then more people will come.
100%. That's funny you say that, because I also say the same thing. I always tell people, I was like, once you get in it, you get very addicted to it. And I always say like that. Like, for example, if I remember I told this to one person, they were like, oh my God, no. And then afterwards they understood what I meant, because I said, if you have money and you want to give it to, like, you want to lend it out, or you want to partner with someone, you want to be the passive, whatever. Mm-hmm. I was like, be prepared to not see that money for 5 years. Not because it's going to disappear, but for the fact of that the money will come back to you. And exactly what you said, like, you're going to get addicted to this money coming in, and you're not having to do anything about it. You're just like, money's coming. And I'm just like, so make sure it's money that you don't need for anything. You don't need for your kids, whatever, because trust me, you're going to like want to just be like, take my money, keep on giving me. Like, all I care about is getting that like monthly income, or getting those lump sums, however very many different people structure it. I was like, it is a very addictive type of thing, where it's just like, my money is making me monies. Or so for some people, I always say, like, I'm like, your money's making little baby money, so like, let it do its job, you know.
True. So yeah, it's another thing that we learned as well is that like I learned is that the investors, the first project, like, even before social media, Facebook or whatever, like, we're actively fundraising for investors, for friends and family and credit investors. Most investors won't invest in your first project. Whatever you give them, even if you give them a project that's already working in a way that we've closed and did everything, you can show them the numbers, but they will not invest. So mm-hmm. I learned that we kind of learned that through just trial and error. Most investors will just show, if this is prior to social media, it's like we give them our booklets. We show them exactly what it was, returns, like projected returns. This is the building you drove around, took a look at the buildings, and we put it here on the table. They're not going to invest. The very first one or the second one, they're not going to even mm-hmm. put any money down. So mm-hmm. we already fully funded some of these projects, and I said, we met these people. I said, okay, we'll show you some of these deals. Drop it on the table. Here, take a look at it. And in about a day or two, I pulled it off the table in a way that I said, you know what? It's gone. It's done. Right? Mm-hmm. It's actually, we could actually sort of switch our money out and get the investors in, but there's no point, because most likely, more likely than not, they're not going to invest. Okay. So think about when you guys are actively seeking money partners, is that you can show them a deal. They're not going to invest in the first 3 deals, right? And just take it off the table, right? In a way that, let them taste the deal first, in a way that let them run the numbers in their head, and then take it away. Most people,
and let them watch you, because it's really an initiation, I feel like, right? You kind of bring them into these, and then they really start watching you, or even they start seeing the results from you talking about it, or they'll obviously ask you because they are interested. It's just kind of like they kind of want to do their own whatever way of vetting, just like let them see, like, how did this one go, that one go,
It's very true. Whatever numbers you show them, it could be good or mediocre. It's a vetting process that most investors will take. Now we're in a stage in our business that we will show past performance, our overall projections and new projects, we have regular investment reporting, like on a quarterly basis, of what's happening, vacancy rates, expense ratios, things like that, that we have to show investors, because we're up to the level where it's a little bit more sophisticated in the way that our investors want that. So we have to be able to show that. So regular reporting on, we get, my administrator provides weekly reports. We have monthly reporting, monthly, either doing evictions, renovations, things like that. And then we have quarterly reporting to our investors. Sometimes there's nothing to report, which is good in a way that it's business as usual, right? But investors want to see that. Investors want to see, okay, well, nothing really happened, right? No change is sometimes a good update. Then
100%.
And then they want to see overall exit strategies. They want to see good and bad. They want to see my Hamilton, what we have done, what went wrong. So that's overall sort of report card, and your experience. What went wrong? What are you doing to bypass that? What type of projects what was successful? And they actually want to see, most investors, okay, want to see things that you have done before. Okay, they don't want to be the guinea pigs. They don't want to be saying, well, you're building this bridge that's going to give you a toll income. I've never built a bridge before. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how to build toll. Like, I don't know that, right? I just know multifamily,
100%.
right? So investors want to see that. When you're presenting something, like when we present something to our investors, it's very simple. We've done this before. This is it. These are our projections. This is our past performance. This is the market condition within that location. What's the growth prospects? Population growth, net migration, the labor, which is the employment. How is that? Is it diversified? They want to see all of that. So when they feel comfortable and they've seen that, then they will invest, right? So for anybody just starting out, that's what you're working towards, right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, all super great points. I'm also wondering because we spoke earlier about the risks, specifically for like you're going to be cash flowing very little. I'm curious at what your strategies will be, like that, because you're cash flowing very little, that what happens if you have some, like, let's say so many tenants, like, do you have any contingency plans for, like, let's say a couple tenants, are vacant and you're not cash flowing, or something happens and you're in a stage, maybe the expenses become too much and you're a stage that you aren't cash flowing. How do you work around those types of scenarios?
So we raised the money prior to this, and we know that what we did was, even for a 29 unit building, we did like a turnover ratio. So for the next 4 years, I think it was a 4-year project for this townhouse. So we did, I think it was 8, 5, 3, 3, 3, 3. So let's say 8 turnovers on the first year, 5, 3, and 3. We didn't even like. So that means what happens that, let's say the renovation is 35,000. You just multiply it out. 35 times the 8 times the 5 times the 3 times the 3. Whatever that cash outlay is, that we're going to raise that up at the very beginning. And also, when we start selling, so basically we're raising the money for the condominiumizing this site. All that has been raised at the very beginning. That's on the turnover basis, and then we've raised money for all of the renovation of the 35,000 times that by 29 units. So we have to have that money just sitting there, but we have to have that money on those 1, 2, 3, and 4 years if there's a turnover, right? So it has to be deployed on those 4-year time period, but the rest of the money can be, on a short-term investment, for those 4 years, and we don't necessarily have to hold, that money in cash. But we raised all the money at the beginning. So if there's any kind of, renovation that needs to get done, we have that ready. But overall, that's especially on this quote unquote type of flip. We're not really flipping, but we're selling it out. But let's say it's not a long-term hold. The money raised, because it's not going to be there on the cash flow on a monthly basis, just like by other buildings where you can almost save that money up, right? So all the money has to be raised at the beginning. So yeah, it's a little bit more capital intensive, and in that case, usually if you raise that much money, your exit strategy has to be a lot higher, right? Because if you don't exit at a higher rate, your rate of return will start to drop.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a great point that I'm going to just reiterate, because I do notice a lot of investors do this even in smaller type projects, is that for some reason I feel like they are like, you know what, I'm not going to get those, for example, like I'm not going to ask my investors for the renovation money or like the contingency money. Specifically in multi-units, I feel like there's a lot of them that, let's say they're like, oh, I'm not going to get the 6 months of contingency money for in case of vacancies or whatever. And I'll, for example, grab it from the cash flow each month. But I think like your approach is so much better, and probably just because I also do it too. But I want to reiterate why I think it's so important. And I'll obviously be interested to hear your point, is that I feel like the worst thing you can do is that you have these investors and you don't ask for everything that you need up front, and you do it after the fact. That makes you look so, in my opinion, I feel like that makes you look like irresponsible because you didn't plan it. And I just like your approach, because same thing, I'm the same. Like I rather make sure like everything I need is up front, so that you're not asking your investors for anything. And it really has to be like a really like catastrophic scenario to happen. Not maybe that bad, but obviously there are scenarios where maybe you kind of have to go back to your investors. But it would have to be those like one-offs that wasn't in the plan that you could just never foreseen happening. And so I'm curious on your point as why you do it. If it's very similar to my thinking, or what's your reasoning behind why you grab all the money up front?
Yeah, the reason behind it is that you don't want to have a cash call. So you want to plan properly and not make yourself quote unquote look stupid. So you don't want that time where you're a year, 2 years in, and then you have to renovate, and you're either doing that 8533 turnover just on a straight rental, and you don't have enough money, or at the end of year 4 and you start selling it, right? You have to have that portion to be able to basically sell. Now, mind you, the sell has to be high enough, right? When you're selling, because if you collect all that money, your rate of return will definitely be lower, because you already got all the deposits, the down payments, all the renovation costs. So your exit, let's say we're exiting at 450, 480, 5 years or 4 years, whatever.
Oh, maybe you're getting another call because can't hear you again.
The call. So
no
that
worries.
exit strategy has to be high enough, right? So let's say, I'm hoping, let's say in 4 years, 5 years from now, that we can sell it at 600,000, right? Instead of that 480, we can sell it 600, 650, right? So that's the exit that you're looking for. Now take that minus the purchase price, minus all your renovation, divided by your denominator of your purchase price and all that. That's your on a rough calc. That's your quote unquote profit minus all your expenses and so on and so forth, like management fees, all that stuff. Your return still has to be decent for the investors, because that's what you're showing your investors, right? That rate of return. Okay.
100%. Yeah. Love all the information that you've provided, especially at least in my channel. We've never talked with these kind of projects. So thanks for sharing. I think everyone will get and is getting a lot of value from you.
No
So I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome to have you on. And just for the final question, for the viewers, do you have 1 or 2 tips for the viewers that you would like to tell anyone doing this type of strategy or looking into it, basically, a new investor that's look or not new investor, but new in that area?
Always, I've said this before, hold a little bit more cash. Don't be leveraged too high, and buy in a decent location, buy a good location. So it is definitely more expensive, but when you're buying, let's say in those areas where it has at least 100,000 population, you have your big box stores, those are your growth areas, right? Anything that's a little bit smaller, I know that, you know, everybody's fighting for that capital, you don't have enough. But anything on a downturn on the market, your secondary market will stay fairly strong. So again, buy better location and hold a little more cash. That's my suggestion.
Awesome, love it. Thanks so much for coming on.
No problem.
And also just for the viewers, because I know that I did see some questions. So this will be on Instagram. We're also going to put it on our Facebook group, and it does go on YouTube 3 weeks afterwards. So I did see someone asking if we could put it on YouTube. So it does actually go on YouTube too. And I'll make sure that I put in the comments the links for that. And actually, it's in Instagram. It's in my bio. So my YouTube channel and I believe my group are both in the bio, so you can find everything there too. So Kasey, thanks so much for coming on. It was awesome to have you and to hear you just tell us your experiences. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.